Hello, everyone. Any pianist that wants to start playing freely will come up to the point where they want to be able to play chords that are a bit more crunchy vibe that I sort of get when I hear those chords. You know the chords that I mean when you're listening to something that's got a bit of a jazz vibe to it, or blues, or R&B, or soul, or all the derivatives of those sorts of genres. Crunchy is just the word that I use to describe it. They do have a sophistication and a richness and a complexity that when you hear those chords, you just get it's like a warm feeling. Basically, a crunchy chord is a major or minor chord, but taken to the extreme, making it more and more complex. That one motto that we can just keep in mind when we're thinking about chords, any sort of chord, so that we can become that crunchy chordster, so that we can be making more complex chords. Now, today I'm going to give you guys a formula for creating any 3-note chord in any 4-note standard 4-note chord. And in fact, I'm going to be giving you, not only are we going to go through them really quickly, but there's also a cheat sheet that you guys can go and download. I'm going to put that link in the description, and this is going to help you with what we're talking about today, these 3-note and 4-note chords. Now, rich chords, the complexity, the crunchiness that we're talking about is actually beyond what we're learning today. So what we're doing today is I'm giving you the foundation of knowing what constructing a chord is all about, so that we're going to move on from this very live stream training. We're going to move on from there, take what we've already learned here, and we're going to take that into the coaching to discover even more crunchy, complex, rich, sophisticated chords. The motto for constructing our chords is we're going to stack thirds. So this is the secret, not only to our basic triads, it's the secret to our 4-note chords, what we call our 7th chords. 4-note chords, 7th chords, what does that mean? We're going to get into that in just a second. And also stacking thirds is the secret behind making more complex chords as well. So if we can get this idea of stacking thirds, and there's only 2 options, but this idea, stacking thirds, is the cornerstone. It's our motto for creating crunchy chords. So we've got 2 types of thirds, the major third and the minor third. Here's our framework that we need to use. The better you get at doing these 2 types of thirds, the quicker you're going to be able to build your chords. So let's get into it. Our major third, we start from a starting point, and we're counting up from 0, our starting point, 1, 2, 3, 4 keys. Okay, we call each key that's right beside each other, we call it a half step. So 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps. That is a major third. A minor third is just 1 half step down from the major third, but we also want to know how to make it without making something else first. So we start at 0 again. A minor third is just 1, 2, 3 keys up, okay? And it works the same down. So if you're starting from here and you need to go down, 1, 2, 3, same thing. Minor third, major third, major third. So 4 steps for a major third, 3 steps for a minor third. That is our chord stone for stacking. Let's get back to stacking, right? So triad stacks. This is where we start to first put this idea of our building blocks, our cornerstone, is these 2 thirds that we're going to stack a combination of those 2 thirds to make our triads. So the first triad we're going to try, our triad that we're going to try, I'm on fire today, is a major chord. So a major chord, the formula for the major chord is a building block of a major third. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, plus a building block of a minor third. 1, 2, 3. Major chord. You can take this formula anywhere on the keyboard. Real quickly, the difference between a major chord and a minor chord is instead of a major third and a minor third, we've got a minor third and then a major third. Okay, so instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, we've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. my gosh, mind-blowing, right? It gets even cooler. So when we talk about a diminished chord is basically more minor than a minor. Like minor thinks it was so hot for being really sad. A diminished chord is even sadder. So we've got a minor third, same on the bottom, but then we've got a minor third on the top. That's a diminished, okay? So more minor than a minor. We've got a minor third and a minor third together. Real quickly, how do we get an augmented chord? Well, the major chord thought it was so super hot for being real happy. The augmented is sort of like the happier but sort of a little bit crazy cousin. So we've got a major third plus another major third. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, this formula, if you do the counting thing from 0 each time, then you can do this formula anywhere on the piano. I'm just sort of demoing it in C. So that's an augmented, right? Okay, now, one little thing I want to point out before we go ahead. With the major and minor triads, the difference between those chords is only in the third, right? The first and the fifth chord tones are exactly the same. With the diminished and the augmented, the difference is in the fifth as well. That idea about we're changing the third and then we're changing the fifth, and then when we get up to seventh chords, which we're going to have a look at now, then we're changing the seventh. And again, if this is going through real fast, but as I said, this is the foundation for the training we're doing at the end of the month. So if this is all going through way too fast, you need to go download this cheat sheet, my friend. It's going to really help you. So 4-note chord stacks, just as a example. So if we have a major seventh, we've got a major triad with a stacked major third on top. 1, 2, 3, 4. For a minor 7, we've got a minor triad with a minor third, 1, 2, 3, stacked on top. For a dominant 7, we have kind of a combo of the two, where we're keeping that minor 7th, but we're actually playing a major chord on the bottom. So that's a major triad with a minor third. And now let's just backtrack a little bit. We're still stacking thirds. Major third, minor third, minor third. You see where I'm going with this? So we've got all these third stacks. The more thirds we add to it, the more complex and rich it sounds. So we've got the major 7th, we've got the minor 7th, we've got the dominant 7th. The next one is similar to the dominant 7th, so you see how we had the dominant 7th is made up of the major triad plus the minor third. The minor major 7th chord, which is reasonably rare, is just the same idea, taking a triad and putting the opposite 7th with it. We're taking the minor chord and adding a major 7th on top. So that's stacking the major third on top of that chord. Minor, major 7. The next ones we have are to do with diminished and augmented 7th. Now, these are built on the diminished and augmented triads. So you got to get those first and then stack the extra thirds on top. The first one we're going to look at is actually reasonably common, and the reason it's common is because it occurs naturally in the major scale. So it's the last 7th chord that occurs diatonically in a major key. That was a big mouthful, wasn't it? And that is a minor 7 flat 5, or some people call this a half-diminished. The reason it's half-diminished is because we're only diminishing the 5, even though we've got a minor 7th in here. Because it's a 7th chord, to be a full diminished chord, we'd have to also diminish the 7th, right? Which means minor chord plus a minor third. That is a full diminished chord. Moving on, so that's the minor 7 flat 5. That is the full diminished. And then the last one we have is augmented. So actually, before we go on, let me just describe that in starting on C as I have with all the other chords. So C, C minor 7 flat 5. Just think of it as a minor 7 flattening the 5, right? But in terms of the stacking thirds, we've got a minor third, a minor third, and then a major third. To get that full diminished, that means we have to flatten this major third into a minor third again. Okay, so the last one that we're doing is augmented. Now, same as the augmented triad being more major than the major, or augmented means to make bigger, right? So we're making that fifth bigger. On top, we have just a normal major 7th. Because we can't go bigger on the 7th, because then we're just going to end up being on an octave, right? And that's just a normal augmented triad. That was pretty intense for a free Facebook Live training. I am aware of that, which is why I have done this cheat sheet so that you guys can go download basically everything we've just talked about. Those formulas are on a little handy one page so that you guys can go through this at home. I hope this will help you. Don't just make the chords in C. When you're practicing, you're trying to learn it, don't just do it in C. Try and do it in some other keys to prove to yourself that the formula really works. And how do you check if you've built it right? Go with the feel. So if you can do it in C, compare how that chord feels correctly in C with the same chord in starting from a different key. It'll have the same feel even if it's starting from a different place on the piano. If this has been interesting, there's so much more. And when I'm talking about today, I said you'd get your roadmap for building more complex chords. It's taking those formulas and extending them to what we call chord extensions, 9ths, 11ths, 13ths, and all the various options of those different types of extensions, as well as common voicings, because when you play chords like that, they don't always sound sophisticated if you just play them in root position. Remember that you must play it like you mean it.